Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sreenivasan, and I'm your host and so grateful to be the convener of this global conversation in conjunction with Scroll.in. This is one of India's leading news, culture, and analysis websites, and we have people who are watching from around the world right now. Please tell us where you're watching from. Please tag your friends. Please hit share. We want as many people to join us as possible. We're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. And right now, we are getting a chance to talk to one of my favorite episodes that we're doing right now, an episode where you're going to meet an author who has had such an impact on the world. So let me tell you who you're about to meet. You're going to meet Sapphire, author and poet whose book Push was made into the Oscar-winning Precious. She's also the author of The Kid and American Dream. And you are going to get a chance to ask her questions. You're going to get a chance to talk to her, which I'm just so excited about. I'm going to be joined by Rose Horowitz, one of our producers, who's a writer, a journalist, and the creator of the hashtag Women to Follow. And that's a hashtag that has had enormous impact as it's given voice to women who otherwise would not have been noticed in the digital world. So if you're not following Women to Follow, you should. And please follow Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31. We're also going to thank our other producer, Vandana Menon, who's Vandana_Menon, and she's watching right now and will be tweeting and tagging and sharing as we go along here. Let's take a look at who's joined us from different places. Jonathan Borstein is here from Union Square, always our first viewer. This is episode number 64, and he has been with us 64 days and nights in a row, also 64 days of the lockdown here in New York City. Before we get started, we've got to pay some bills, so we want to thank our sponsor for the show, and that's Zone Social Media Solutions and the Survive with Live Video Bootcamp. Starting June 1st, launch your own consistent live stream show in just 8 weeks. Learn how to get and keep your message out there, building relationships with your customers and potential customers during a time when it's needed most. Please take a look at zonesocialmediasolutions.com. Learn how to get past the fear of going on camera, what to talk about on your live videos, the tech, how to promote your videos, and actually launch your show in a supportive community of professionals. This is the second set of ads that he's run with us. They say you never forget your first sponsor or your first advertiser. Bruce Springsteen talks about the first person who paid him $5 to perform. And while I've been paid for my work before, I had never had a sponsor for this show before. So I'm always grateful to Tim Sohn and Sohn Social Media Solutions, SOHN. Please follow up. And by the way, at the end of the show, we're going to play a video testimonial from someone who's taken that course. So you're going to really learn the value of signing up for the course. So I'm excited to meet Sapphire. I know you are as well. Please tag your friends right now. Tag your friends, hit share, retweet. Tell them that this is a rare opportunity to meet Sapphire live on this show. And we want to hear where you're watching from. So let me first bring on our producer, Rose Horowitz. Bring her on. Hi, Rose. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I know you're jazzed. I'm jazzed too. And we are just very excited. Before we bring Sapphire on, do you want to just say anything to our audience about her?
Sapphire was born in 1950. Was the daughter of two Army, sort of, she calls herself an Army brat, and then began teaching English. She taught for English in Harlem for several years before she wrote the book Push, that was then made into the movie Precious. And the next book after that, the next novel was The Kid, which sort of tells the story of the woman's son who's the focus of Push. And she has two collections of poetry, which is really wonderful.
Excellent. So I'm ready. I know she's ready. She's been waiting very patiently. So let me say hello to Sapphire. Hello.
How are you?
I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you. I ask this of all our guests. How are you? Where are you? How's your family?
I I am in Brooklyn, and I am in Brooklyn, New York. I am in my second month of lockdown. I'm my family. What family I have is in California, so I don't have, and I have an aunt in Chicago. So basically, I am have many friends, but I'm basically not have don't have family in New York, and so I'm really, this has been one of the most challenging times of many people's lives, and I think especially for people who have had to have almost total isolation during this period. And so I'm really able to observe a lot, and I'm really seeing a lot. And this has been a travesty. And what keeps me going is knowing that I'm connected to people around the world who are going through the same thing. But like the Dr. Bright said today before the congressional hearing, it did not have to happen this way. So in addition to the pandemic, we're dealing with a very dysfunctional government that has put our lives at risk. And we're angry and we're heartbroken about that particular situation.
You're absolutely right, and thank you for pointing that out. I think the tragedy, so many tragedies, Sapphire, in this, but one of the tragedies is what's happened to the African American community and people of color, and they're dying at a disproportionate number. Any death is tragic, but you have seen states, Sapphire, where there are.
It's been devastating. So we talk about the beautiful city of New Orleans, the home of Louis Armstrong, the Wynton Marsalis of jazz. And we know that after Hurricane Katrina, the Black population was 30%, but they are 70% of the COVID-19 deaths. So 30% of the population and 70% of the deaths. And the deaths here in New York are disproportionately also African American and Latino. And that there are a lot of reasons for that, and a lot of it is because we are the so-called essential workers. We are the invisible ones until this time. We are the bus drivers. We are the home attendants. We are the aides in the nursing homes. So we're doing that work. We are delivering the groceries. So we're constantly exposed in a certain kind of way to the virus. We don't have the protective equipment. When they went to outfit people in the hospitals, of course, the doctors and nurses got it first, and then the nurses' aides got it if any was left over, and then that janitor who was coming in cleaning the hospital room, he often was a fatality to the COVID-19, because by the time they handed the too few N95 masks out, there were none left for the cleaning staff. Okay, so African Americans, Latinos have really been hit hard by this situation, and also, of course, the elderly across all races, but particularly the working people. So there's been a lot of clapping and and flying planes over for the medical workers, as it should be. But what we really need is economic investment in protective equipment, and really allow these workers, when they get sick, to stay home so they don't have to literally go home and die.
I don't know if you've seen this article by Adam Server, who said the coronavirus was an emergency until Trump found out who was dying. The pandemic.
That is very true. Sometimes you get the feeling that this is like a Dickensian novel with with old Scrooge saying, "Let's get rid of the surplus population." So there's definitely a real feeling of discrimination. There's something else going on too. There's also an economic factor. What happens when someone has COVID? They go into the ICU, the intensive care unit. The American hospital system is built on a profit basis, the same way a department store is, or a shopping mall is. So the intensive care units are usually taken up by high profit patients, like people getting hip replacements, people getting heart valve replacements, people getting open heart surgery. These are things that are highly reimbursable from the insurance companies. When the COVID patient goes in, who often may be a working class person without the best hospital insurance and maybe no hospital insurance, there you have people taking up beds who are not profit making. Now, in a humane society, that would not make a difference. But in a totally capitalistic, selfish society, gravitating and dependent upon profit, they don't want to admit those people. So oftentimes, people who are direly ill are sent home to die. So that's why we've had so much confusion with the death count. There thousands of people have died in their homes after being sent home from the hospital, and many have been sent home from the hospital because it doesn't pay to just crowd your wards with dying poor patients who aren't going to pay. Now, this would not happen in a country who has far less economic resources than we do, like say Cuba. No one is going to ask you when you go in Cuba or in a more economically developed, highly economically developed country like Denmark. No one is going to send you home because you can't pay. So there's a lot going on. It's really been touted that the African American community has high comorbidity, a lot of high blood pressure and stuff. But the whole country has, the average person over 50 years old in America, white, black, or whatever, has high blood pressure. You just can't blame all these deaths on high blood pressure. These people are dying because they have not been admitted to the hospital in time. So it's about race, it's about class, and those issues conflate in the United States. I imagine if we went to other countries where race was not conflated with class, then it would be just the poor people who are dying, who are or being underserved. But here, those two issues conflate, and often African American people and Latino people are also poor people, and we suffer disproportionately, and and that's part of what you see. You see the open up movement when you see those people with their guns defying authority down at the Capitol. Can you imagine a black or brown person going up to a National Guardsman with their gun and spitting in their face like these white people are doing? So it's inconceivable, but these white people have decided, it doesn't make any difference that people in the inner city in Detroit or other places or nursing homes, their own mothers are dying. We've got to open up the economy. So again, there's been a real disconnection. I think of the people who first peopled this country, the Native American people. And the Native American women, when I would go listen to their poetry and stuff, they would often talk about the great web of life, how we're all connected, we're all one. And when that web breaks, then it's not just broken in one place, it's broken all over. And I guess you know that Doctors Without Borders, for the first time, has had to come into the United States. Doctors Without Borders, who, we all give our check because they go to the Congo, and they go where the pain is. Well, they have had to come in to the United States of America and assist the Navajo Nation because the United States is not doing it. 30% of the Native American population in the Navajo Nation does not have running water. So all this hand washing is impossible, and they are dying. So this is what we're facing here. You know what I mean? And then we've got Trump. We've got a dummy like Trump up talking about ultraviolet light, and maybe you could just get some disinfectant under the skin. And you know that there are people who believe him, so much so after he said that the Poison Control Center said they were flooded with calls about people wanting to know how much bleach should they take in.
Amazing for you to lay it out like that. Thank you, Sapphire. I'm just moved here. I'm angry. I am upset. And I'm reading these comments. You have really given voice to so many people who want to hear you talk about what is happening here. I want to remind everyone, this is Sapphire, the author, the poet, the activist, as you can tell in her voice and her righteousness. Please tag your friends. You know someone who should be watching this right now or who can watch it later. Tag them, hit share, retweet. We're just going to read a couple of the comments to you, Sapphire, if I may. Karen says, still reeling from the fate of maskless janitors. And as I hear you talk about the Navajo Nation, the picture of Doctors Without Borders operating inside the borders of the United States, inside a Native American reservation. Avinash says, Sapphire, very proud of you. He says, tell us where you're watching from. We will show her that you're watching from around the world. Doug Levy's watching from sunny Marin County in California. And Tim Sohn is watching from Northwest Pennsylvania. And lawyer as well, Lopa is watching. She says, good morning, means that she's watching from India. Christine is watching from California. What an exciting guest, she says. Tim says, you seem to get the most amazing guests. Thank you. Because of these guests, we are able to talk to all of you. Giuseppe is watching, and Jennifer is watching from East Harlem and says hello from to Sree and Sapphires in Brooklyn. I'm here in New York. And Geeta says, I love Sapphire. That is just awesome to get these great comments from everybody here. And Kanika is watching from Houston. And you remember, you mentioned New Orleans, and you remember how so many people left New Orleans and moved to Texas. And there, again, they had trouble with the floods that came after. And now, and as I think about all of this, and as I hear you lay this out, what you said about the armed, masked men going onto the state capitol with guns, not only is it unimaginable, they would be shot. And we saw young Tamir Rice with a toy gun, 12 years old, shot in this country. And then we're told that, oh, everything is okay, don't worry about it. It is so upsetting.
And not only would African Americans or Latinos or any brown-skinned person be shot, we're listening to the head of state encourage this type of anarchy. Take back Michigan. Take back your state. He's encouraging people to defy the governor's stay-at-home orders because he is so frightened of economic loss, because he has, this is what he bases his ability to get reelected on. So this what we're seeing is a real disservice in government, in a way that I have lived through many administrations. The Kennedy, Nixon, Clinton. Never have we seen a disregard for law like this before, but I think this is the first time we've really seen it cost lives. This is costing people their lives. And that is why it is unconscionable and why we must protest, And I think what this program does is it gives us a chance to protest, because I'm a person, I like to hit the street, but that is not, that's not feasible right now. I cannot be in large crowds, I cannot expose myself. I'm in the high risk category. So there's a way that we have to work to get our voices out. But this cannot go. This cannot go on. This cannot go on. And we are going to. As Dr. Bright said, if we do not make some changes, begin to really get a handle on this. He said, we possibly will see the darkest winter in our lifetimes. And so I lived through the AIDS epidemic. I lived through, the Vietnam War. My parents were veterans in World War II and the Korean War. Never, I agree with the head of the World Health Organization. humanity has not faced a crisis like this since World War II. This is not the time for a leader who gets up on national television and talks about, I was number one on Facebook, as people are dying.
And by the way, he was wrong.
Was
Anyway,
number one.
he was not number one. You are so right.
He's lost his mind. So we are in a place of being under the rule of a total narcissist who has a total disregard for human life. And his disregard happened long before he found out it was mostly Black and brown people dying. So he didn't know who was dying when he first got the notices. You know what I mean? He didn't know, and now it's less of a priority. But this guy was never about humanity.
Oh, you are so right. Let me read you a couple of comments, and then I know Rose would like to talk to you about your writing and all the great work you've been doing. Angela's watching from Long Island and says, thanks for bringing attention to such important topics. Dana says, Trump simply has no moral compass. The only way to fight him is at the polls in November. Dana says, I was absolutely stunned to see the Michigan State House with gun-toting crazies, and she's watching from Philly. And Avinash is watching from Kolkata in India. And we have so many voices coming in from all over. Anand's watching from Andhra Pradesh in India. Avinash says, my daughter, Ashima Wild, works at Operations Manager of Republic Services, which is a waste management company. And she's doing a wonderful job taking care of her people. Makes me very proud of her loving dad. That is awesome to see awesome. That. Sheikh says, congrats on your great success. Luke is watching from Long Island again. So we've got a lot of Long Island in the house. Our producer Vandana is tweeting and sharing, and she's also tagging stories here. And we've just got so many great comments. So now let's bring in Rose. Asif is also watching, and he says hello. Rose, I know you want to talk about her writing and her inspiration of so many people, that she's been an inspiration to so many. I will just remind people of this wonderful quote that she articulated, part of her mission and her work. If I can just pull this up here, this quote says very clearly, I have brought into the public gaze women who have marginalized by sexual abuse, poverty, and their Blackness. Through art, I have sought to center them in the world. So with that, let me hand over the microphone to Rose Horowitz, who is going to now take charge and tell us, do a little interview here directly with Sapphire. Go ahead, Rose.
Okay. Hi, Sapphire.
Hi, Rose.
Great to have you join us. We're very honored.
I'm really happy to be here. Very happy to be here.
I guess I'll just start out asking you now, where you said you're in your apartment in New York City, you're not with family. How are you spending the time? Are you reading, listening to the news all the time? Are you writing new things, talking to friends?
I think my mic is mute. Okay. Yes, I put myself on a regular writing schedule. So I'm doing a lot of writing. I'm working on a new novel called the Harlem Trilogy, which is 3 short novels or novellas, however it works out, about a family from their roots in Mississippi up through Harlem and leaving Harlem. So it's a 3 geographic locations are in the novel. I'm also working on new poetry, and then I spent a lot of time reading the news. I used to try to, of course, try to stay off the news, but I feel it's vital to spend time at reliable news sites, and even unreliable ones. So sometimes I don't know what's happening at the Center for Disease Control, but I'm constantly on it. I'm constantly trying to figure out what is happening. Mm-hmm. I want to say, like with my first novel, which is, we are going to celebrate a 25th anniversary edition next year of it. It's the publishers will be bringing out a special edition of Push. It was written during the time of the first great viral epidemic in this country. So one of the major themes in Push is HIV. And the protagonist is a young girl who is HIV positive. And we were in the throes of a highly politicized, a highly racialized virus. You know what I mean? That somehow the virus got associated with viruses are viruses. They are not homosexual. They are not Black. They are not poor. They attack whoever they can attack. But they attack the most vulnerable. And so the novel Push was written in response to many things, racism, sexism, issues around gender and homophobia, but it was also written in response to the HIV epidemic.
And do you see that coming into play in this new trilogy you're working on?
Well, the first two trilogies take place earlier in the century, so I'm pretty sure that the last of the three novels, it would be impossible for someone like me to be living this life I'm living right now, unable to go out and shop. Right now I want to put out a shout out for Invisible Hands Deliver. There was a time when I literally did not have food, and there's an organization that delivers food for people who couldn't get food deliveries. These are young people, millennials out there, volunteering to get food to people like me. So it would be impossible for me to write a novel calling myself a socially conscious realist and not somehow include this pandemic in it. So it won't be in the first two novels, but that last novel, somehow I will have to respond to this situation.
Awesome. And what is a planned publication date so we can all watch for it?
I don't know because it is a trilogy. My dream is to have each book published individually as opposed to all three at one time. So I'm hoping that the first installment of the trilogy will possibly be published around the same time as the reissue, the 25th anniversary edition of Push. I mean, that's just a hope and a dream. I don't know. What I do is I do the writing, and I have a beautiful agent who helps me do the publishing.
Great. Would you want to? And in terms of poetry now, are you writing some of your anger about what's happening politically in your poetry now?
What I'm doing is I'm keeping a journal, and so a lot of it will turn into poetry. And one of the things that I'm really focused on is and I'm working now on a long poem, and I'll just talk about it as opposed to try to read it because it's still very incoherent. And but I'm working on that whole issue of someone so beautifully said it: the essential workers are not essential workers; they're sacrificial workers. So I would say it's been 30 years now. It's been 30 years ago that I was on the Upper West Side on my hands and knees scrubbing white women's floors to pay my way through college. And I will never forget rising up off my knees and telling the woman one day, "You need to pay me more money. You see what kind of work I'm doing here, assisting you and keeping your house clean and allowing you to have a middle class life. You need to pay me more money." And the woman told me, "I'll get a Mexican. I'm not paying you any more than I'm paying you now. I can get a Mexican for less." And she did. And I never forgot that. And since then, I've graduated from college. I've been a best-selling author. I've been a university professor. I've been a paid public speaker. But I never forget that minute asking this white woman when I was her essential worker for a raise, and her telling me, "I'll get a Mexican." In other words, what she was telling me, you Black African American, you uppity N-word, I'll get someone who has no rights. I'll get someone who cannot protest. I'll get someone who cannot ask for an extra $2 or $3 an hour. So I'm trying to weave that into a poem because I know that that woman now, 30 years has passed. She is now in a nursing home somewhere. She may be one of those bodies that was stacked up in the freezer and abandoned, that someone had to drop a dime on and say the nursing home is storing bodies underneath in the basement. She has been, as she abused me now as an old woman, 80, 90 years old, she is being abused by the same society. And that's what the Native American women meant. When you break the web, it's broken everywhere. So when she told me that, not only was she not going to give me any more money, that she would now bring in a Hispanic undocumented worker and abuse her because she could not protest. The web was broken and it stayed broken. And I'm sure somewhere now it is broken for her. So I'm writing that into a long poem, and I'll and when I get through, I'll share it. I'll share it with you.
Okay. What would you? We'd love to hear you read. What would you like to start? Do you want to read anything from Push, or?
I think I will read.
Okay.
Something from Push.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna read that.
While she's getting ready, while you're getting ready, if you could give me a minute, we just want to tell everybody who's watching right now, you're about to hear Sapphire read from Push, the book that became the Oscar-winning movie Precious, the book that had an impact of such great proportions all over American society, the book that's going to celebrate 25 years next year. And I hope, Sapphire, you'll come back and we'll have a grand celebration, either in person or online. I'm learning so much from you tonight, and I'm so grateful for your attention. Everybody who's watching, please tag a friend. Please share right now. They can watch it later. Everyone's busy with people watching. I'm counting on LinkedIn. Somebody's watching from Florida. James says he's so happy to see you again. Jide is watching from Lagos, Nigeria right now. And they're all, this global family has come together to celebrate Sapphire and to learn about what are the different things that you're working on. And she's about to read from a copy that she has of her own novel, Precious, Push, that became Precious. And we also have people watching from Kerala in India. We have Sonali watching from Maryland. Fernando is watching from Los Angeles, California. Sonali says she loves the movie and says the HIV/AIDS crisis still matters. So let's not forget that. Janine is watching from Pennsylvania, and Fernando says always engaging as usual. Wow. Bill is watching from Australia. So we've just got this amazing global conversation, and people are tagging each other. Tag a friend, hit share, bring them in, folks. This is such a special conversation. And now she's going to read a little bit. So I'm going to put her on stage so she can read for us, and I will unmute her mic.
Okay, I'm reading from the very first page of Push. 1. I was left back when I was 12 because I had a baby for my father. That was in 1983. I was out of school for a year. This is going to be my second baby. My daughter got Down syndrome. She's retarded. I had got left back in the 2nd grade too when I was 7 because I couldn't read and I still peed on myself. I should be in the 11th grade getting ready to go into the 12th grade so I can go on and graduate, but I'm not. I'm in the 9th grade. I got suspended from school because I'm pregnant, which I don't think is fair. I ain't did nothing. My name is Clarice Precious Jones. I don't know why I'm telling you that. Guess I don't know how far I'm going to go with this story, whether it's even a story, why I'm talking. Whether I'm going to start from the beginning or right from here or 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, sure, you can do anything when you're talking or writing. It's not like living when you can only do what you're doing. Some people tell a story and it don't make sense or be true. but I'm going to try to make sense and tell the truth. Else, what's the fucking use? Ain't enough lies and shit out there already? So, okay, it's Thursday, September 24, 1987, and I'm walking down the hall. I look good, smell good, fresh, clean, it's hot, but I do not take off my leather jacket even though it's hot. It might get stolen or lost. Indian summer, Mr. Witcher say. I don't know why he call it that. What he mean is it's hot, 90 degrees like summer days, and there is none air conditioning in this MFN building. The building I'm talking about is, of course, Intermediate School 146 on 134th Street between Lenox Avenue and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. I'm walking down the hall from homeroom to first period. Why they put some shit like math first period, I do not know. Maybe to go on and get it over with. I actually don't mind math as much as I thought I would. I just fall into Mr. Witcher's class, sit down. We don't have assigned seats in Mr. Witcher's class. We sit anywhere we want. Every day I sit next to the back door. I don't say nothing to him. He don't say nothing to me. First day he say, class, turn the book pages to page 122. I don't move. He say, Miss Jones, I said, turn the book pages to 122. I said, motherfucker, I ain't deaf. The whole class laughed. He turned red. He slammed his hand down on the book and said, try to have some discipline. He a skinny little white man, about 5 feet 4 inches, a peckerwood, as my mother would say. I can slam too. And I pick up my book and slam the desk hard. I don't want to hurt him or embarrass him like that, you know? But I can't let him, anybody know page 122 look like page 152, 22, 65. All the pages look alike to me. And I really do want to learn. Every day I tell myself something gonna happen, some shit like on TV. I'm gonna break through or somebody gonna break through to me. I'm gonna learn, catch up, be normal, and change my seat to the front of the class. But again, it has not been that day. So that's it starts with a day in the life of a sad, illiterate young girl, obese, thinking she's ugly, but desperately trying to hide the fact from the teacher and her classmates that she cannot read. And that is the fate of many, many inner city children who have been undereducated and miseducated. And so we start at really the lowest point in this girl's life. And that is that she learns to push.
I want to just read some of these comments. Courtney says, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm hearing Sapphire read Push live. And Vandana says that, wow, this is incredible. Thank you so much for reading for us. And people are just tagging their friends. Manuel is watching from Spain and he's applauding you right now. Fernando is tagging so many different people. Doug Levy says, that makes me so sad to hear, but your words are so beautiful and expressive. I know that scene plays out way too often today. When you wrote that 25 years ago, did you think that things would change 25 years later? Or did you think this was just, you were just documenting in a way what was happening and that it won't make a difference?
I took my work very seriously. At the time when this book was out, when it first came out, I realized I was touching on some health issues, I was touching on some educational issues, and I was touching on some social issues. I sent a copy of this book to Hillary Clinton at the time. She was working on revising a health program for the nation. I sent a copy of it to the Center for Disease Control. I sent a copy of it to the Black Psychiatrists Association. So I was serious about my work. And I really did think that it would make a change. I did think that it would at the very least, humanize the people the young women who were living in shame and pain, who were HIV positive. I thought it would bring a human face to a statistic. So I was serious about my work. and I was also realistic in terms of that I'm living in a capitalist culture, as we see now, that has put profit before people, and that it would be hard to really change a lot of things. One epiphany that I did have was the Center for Disease Control released some statistics in the early 2000s, and I wasn't even really paying attention. I just always have this news on, and they said for the first time in the history of the AIDS epidemic, the HIV rate for African American women had started to go down. And I remember a feeling of pride coming in me, and I thought, my work was a part of that. My work was a part of the reason that that HIV was lessened in the African American community, although it's still rampant. But that I put a face on a nameless victim, on a statistic, and allowed people who had the courage to be able to step forward and talk about who they were and what they were, and not be so cloaked in shame. And shame is one of the biggest killers we have.
Thank you so much. Rose, I know you have some questions, and there's so many comments coming in. I wish I could show them all to you. Sonali says Sapphire is amazing. People are tagging their friends. Sonali says Monsoon Wedding by Mira Nair, the movie, is a parallel of sorts, the kind of issues you touched upon. I don't know if you ever got a chance to see that. And
I will.
Janine says, one of the most important books to read, both as a teen and as an adult, is this book, Push by Sapphire, and just so many other comments. But let's go to Rose, and she's standing by with some questions.
Oh. Hi, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry. Sapphire, when this book came out, there was some, I read an interview in The Guardian, and they said that Sapphire wrote this because she herself had been abused, and she, was speaking from this experience. And I think you made a comment like, well, it's out there in the world. What can I do about it now? But having, met with you and know you a little bit, that is, tell us your experience and what made you write this book.
Well, my experience, I really was really angry when I read some of the people conflating my life with the protagonist's life, and not that I feel I'm so different from the people I write about, not at all. But my experience was very different. I was an adult woman working in a literacy program, really all through the Bronx and Harlem, working with young women and starting to really document some of the things that I was seeing in the inner city. A little bit about my own background. Both of my parents were soldiers in World War II. I was born on a military base, so there's a certain kind of sadism and racism that you experience when you are literally a child. I was a child living my earliest years on a military base, and in my at 2, 3, and 4. My family was actually stationed in post-war Germany. So this was a world torn apart by the after effects of World War II and the Holocaust. And it was a dreadful experience for me. And it was, and my family suffered greatly. Therefore, I suffered greatly. But it was not the same thing as what I was describing in Push. So it really irritated me that, number one, my own experience was being distorted and diminished, and then it was being conflated with the experience of the very unique experience of this beautiful young girl. So that's where I was coming from with that. There was no way that I was trying to intellectually or emotionally distance myself from my beautiful character, Precious. You know what I mean?
And tell us about the language in Freshness. And why did you decide to write in that way where, father is spelt wrong? And, it was very, very moving, I can say, as I read the book, because as she learns, her writing gets better.
Well, that's part of the point of it, is by the end of the book, we go from father to my father. Her language changes. She begins to. One of the things I was thinking about was, uh, do you remember the novel by Frankenstein by Mary Shelley?
Mm-hmm.
It's not until the monster has a voice and is able to tell his story that we feel for him. So what we see in Push is a person who has been so demonized, welfare mother, this and that they are almost dehumanized. And the way Precious gets her humanity back is through language, through writing. And in that way, she's no different than Virginia Woolf, who loses her mind and is able to write herself back to sanity. This is something we can all do. You know what I mean? And I wanted to, with a paper and pen, you know, um, Catalina de Jesus, the famous woman of the favela, who started to write a diary on the back of trash that she found in the trash can, begins to write her life, begins to write herself into existence. So George Jackson, the prison letters of George Jackson, confined to a cell that he never escaped from. They ended up murdering George Jackson, but we have his letters. So I wanted to show language that in the beginning, she almost has no language except the language of brutality and neo-slavery, but she ends up being able to articulate beautifully. It's not, and that's the reason why I chose that type of language. We begin one place and we end up another place.
It's wonderful, wonderful. Great to hear you speak about it. When the novel came out, I think that I read a quote that you didn't want to have it made into a movie. There was nobody who you thought could make this movie the right way. What changed your mind?
I mean, several people approached me, and I gave a lot of people my ear. I didn't just summarily dismiss people, but nobody was really saying anything that made any sense to me. I remember one young man, I gave him a lot of time. He's an African American young producer. And he told me, he said, "Don't worry, Sapphire, I've got all the bases covered. I've already talked to Brandy." And I said, "You've talked to you? You're talking about the R&B singer, the beautiful R&B singer Brandy? What have you talked to her about?" "Oh, I'm gonna have Brandy play Precious." And I I didn't know what to say, because Precious does not look like Brandy or Beyonce. I needed to have someone who looked like the character I described. And it took many years to find someone. And I knew when I met Lee Daniels and I saw the work that he had done, I knew that he wasn't going to play around. You know what I mean? And I knew that he was fearless. He's fearless. He's a genius and he's fearless. So other people would have been afraid to present a big Black woman like Precious. Other people would have been afraid of what people talked about and would have thought. But he was fearless. He said, I'm gonna bring you a girl. I'm gonna bring you someone that you approve of." And we must have interviewed 20, 30 young women, you know what I mean? And one producer I talked to before Lee Daniels said, "Well, there are no people like that in Hollywood." And Lee Daniels said, "That's right. And we're not going to Hollywood to get them. We're gonna go where they are." And so hence we got Gabourey, the one of the most fabulous actors out there. But we didn't get her from Hollywood. I think she was up in the Bronx.
Awesome.
May I just read you some this for those who can't read the title card very well, or the poster? It says Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry present a Lee Daniels film, Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire. Just when you hear just those three names associated with yours and the title, how do you feel? How did you feel the first time you saw that and it all came together? How do you feel now?
I felt and I still feel very blessed. Like I knew when Oprah and Tyler Perry came on that it was going to boost the project. What I knew when Lee Daniels came on, I would have a work of art. I knew he would produce an award-winning film. But without Oprah and Tyler Perry, we stood in danger of being an art house film. We stood in danger of being a little film down in the village, with preaching to the choir, with other artists and intellectuals standing around drinking our cappuccino and everything. And with when Oprah came on, that film, and Tyler Perry, both of them were amazing, gracious people. That film went international, international, and it played. My dream came true. I went up to the opening night. I went up to Harlem. I wanted to be in Harlem at the newly opened theater in Harlem to sit with the audience and watch their reaction. So I ran up there, and home. And the man said, "I'm sorry, it's sold out." It was sold out in Harlem. All black audience was rocking with my movie, was rocking to Lee Daniels, and that was worth all that I went through, all the negativity and all the floors I cleaned to go to college. That was my payoff.
Wow. Please tell me you got in to see it that night.
No, they wouldn't let me in.
No.
It was like a little riot going on, you know what I mean? And I did not get to get in, but that was better than getting in, because I had been through the whole publicity thing. So I sat through the film 10 or 20 times.
Sure.
So to know that was a sellout in Harlem was just fantastic to me.
Let me read you some of the other names if I can.
Okay.
Monique, Paula Patton, Mariah Carey, Lenny Kravitz. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So Monique, the Oscar winner, and was just fabulous. I haven't seen acting like that in years and years and years. She took it to another level. You know what I mean? Mariah Carey was like fantastic. I remember the first time I saw the screening of the film, because we all know Mariah. I remember looking at the film and I thought, oh, they decided to not include Mariah Carey. So that's how good an actor she was. She totally obliterated the self we knew and became a working class social worker. I did not know that woman was Mariah Carey. So it was fantastic. To see people, really take my words and fly with them. And there were some instances where I felt they actually acted, better than some of the things that were in the book. It was fantastic. So it was a collaborative effort, and that's the genius of being an actor. They just shine gold on your work. So it's nothing I could have done by myself. It's nothing I could have done without a billionaire like Oprah, and a genius like Lee Daniels. I mean, these people did it, and they did it without a lot of money and without a lot of approval. They wasn't like people were patting them on the back or anything like that, but they just went against the wind, and became a whirlwind. And I was truly transported by their energies.
That's great. We have a little bit of time left with the great Sapphire. Please, everyone who's watching, tag your friends as Courtney and others are doing. Sonali, they're just on fire tagging all their friends. They're all going to get alerts when they have time. They're going to watch this on the replay and all of that. I know Rose has a couple more questions. I would like to ask you, Sapphire, in terms of for people who missed the beginning of this, I want them to get a taste of your righteous anger that you are feeling right now, as I am feeling, as everybody who cares about what's happening in the world. That how did we come to be America? We are number one in so many things. We like to say we're so great, but even before this, we were not so great. We were the economy that the president touted every single day. There were 40% of Americans couldn't write a $400 check to go across the country for an unexpected funeral. And now 30 million Americans unemployed. A disproportionate number of them will be folks of people who are people of color and of poor means to begin with. Can you reflect on that for us, please, and give us some insight and some of your thoughts on this?
I mean, what has happened with the pandemic is that it is like a fire in the night. It exposes what has been hidden. So we have been dysfunctional in many ways, especially economically. People have been living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, and just a subsistence level. Healthcare has been put on the back burner. And we've squeezed the working class. We've squeezed the working class until they can almost no longer survive. And now what the pandemic does is just open that up, and we see what this has meant generation after generation. People being put under profits over people. And so we're really seeing that. We're seeing that in what is happening in the hospitals. We're seeing that, I at some point I was walking before, I went into lockdown, and I passed I was way downtown. I passed it was like a Mercedes Benz showroom. But at the same time, the news I was reading was that we could not find $1. They're basically 99 cents to make N95 mask. So here we are importing luxury vehicles. Here we are, Macy's. Here we are, the consumer society that cannot come up with the medical equipment to protect some of our most valuable workers, our nurses, our janitors, our home attendants, people who have been tasked with taking care of our gracious elders, don't have masks to wear, and they are dying. And I'm thinking, how can the most affluent country in the world not be able to come up with these things? So what we saw was a broken healthcare system exposed, a profit system exposed, and we suffered for it. And what we really saw was how deeply race and class had been conflated, in that African Americans and Latino workers were dying in disproportionate numbers. In New Orleans, our beautiful this is the most iconic city of the South, New Orleans. Louis Armstrong, where jazz was born. After Katrina, we have a 30% African American population, but a 70% COVID-19 death. 70% of the COVID-19 deaths in New Orleans are African American. So this virus, this pandemic, is going to have an almost genocidal effect because of the economics that are conflated with class and race in this country. The poor and the colored will suffer mightily. And therefore, one of our people who wrote in, we must get to the polls in November. And no matter what the outcome in the election, we just must be there. But we also must begin to take control of some of the systems that are controlling our lives. We cannot continue to have a healthcare system that sends poor people home to die, refuses to test these people in Queens, sending them home, talking about, isolate in your basement for 14 days. And then the next thing we have is an undertaker taking the body out of the basement after 14 days. We can't have that. These are people who don't deserve to die like animals. And so, I mean, that's what I'm seeing. And I live on a street, right on Flatbush Avenue, and I can hear the ambulance sirens going down. And I think another soul disappearing from the face of the earth. And these are, I no longer think of my people. I think all people are my people. But I most especially have the deepest connection to those who came here as slaves several hundred years ago, and we built this economy with slave labor. They're dying. They are as the beautiful young person wrote in, it's not essential work, it's sacrificial workers. They are the ones who can be sacrificed. And in my mind, it's a clarion call to consciousness. If we ever thought our work was done, or we ever thought we had accomplished something, we need to think again. We need to think again. We need to look back at our heroines. We need to look back at Fannie Lou Hamer. We need to look back at Rosa Parks, and take those women in our hearts and move forward, because we cannot allow this to happen.
Wow. Thank you so much. Janine says, preach, which is what you were doing to all of us and helping us. Thank you so much. Nitin is watching from the town of Dharamshala in India, where the Dalai Lama lives. And he says, thank you for having Sapphire on this show. People are tagging each other. Luca says, thank you for this amazing show. Sonali says, amen. That is all that's to be said. She's saying Sojourner Truth as another person that we should remember. And I'm getting very emotional. I don't know. I didn't expect to. Jonathan says, Sapphire is engaging and thought-provoking. Thank you so much. And Rose, as you are listening to that, Rose, I want to hear your feedback and your thoughts on what you just heard.
It's sort of speechless because Sapphire says it so eloquently. And, as a writer, you felt that you did make a difference. Like when you said, in writing Push, that there's more awareness and among the African-American community about what it is to be. I mean, you can talk to that really better than I can, but is it now terribly frustrating for you to see this wave, this pandemic, and again, that Blacks and colored people of color are being, are getting the sacrificial lambs again?
Yeah, this is extremely frustrating. And what Dr. Bright said, who testified today, the whistleblower from the White House, is that we stand to enter into one of the darkest moments in humankind's history. And a virus is not it may start and take a great toll on people of color, but it reminds me of the heroin epidemic in the 1970s. No one paid any attention to it because only Blacks were dying. Blacks and mostly Puerto Ricans at that time in the Bronx were dying of heroin. And then what happened? Who did the next wave of opioids hit? White people. So the idea that somehow this virus will just stop with Black people and just wipe out Black people is really erroneous and foolhardy and evil thinking. You know what I mean? This is a crisis that faces humanity. Right now we're hearing great numbers in Russia. In the UK. This is not something that is going to be confined to poor people. This stands to take a great toll on humanity, and we are all human, and we should all be deeply concerned about what is happening, and not just be like, it's not happening to me. Yes, if it's happening to me, it's happening to you. We're all connected.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Peggy says, this is awesome. I came online to cause a ruckus, but you are awesome. So she's not causing a ruckus, I guess. And Peggy says, thank you for your book. And Jayashree Abhichandani, a great friend and a great artist herself, says Sapphire is everything. 3 claps, 3 prayers, 3 hearts, and 3 hugs. It's just great to see that, and just so wonderful. We only have a few minutes because we could keep going. This could be one of those all-night affairs where you're just preaching and we're just listening, but we want to give you back your evening as well. Rose, let's ask her a question, and then I'll ask, and then we'll wrap up for the evening.
Do you find when you're writing, can you read us some of your beautiful poetry and leave us with some hope here in hearing your beautiful words and your voice?
While she's doing that, I'll just give her a second to find the exact page. Folks, you're listening to the end of a conversation with the great Sapphire, the author of the book Push, the novel Push that became the movie Precious 24 years ago, 1996, the book came out and helped change the way a lot of people saw America and parts of America that they didn't understand. I want to read again this quote that beautifully summarizes the way that Sapphire thinks of her own work. And we, of course, heard her own words, but let me just put this up again for everybody to see. I have brought into the public gaze women who've been marginalized by sexual abuse, poverty, and their blackness. Through art, I have sought to center them in the world. I can't read that, Sapphire, without getting emotional. That's such a powerful way of looking at our society. Thank you, and over to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna read a very, very short poem from my book, Black Wings and Blind Angels. So this is it's actually the last poem in the book, and it's called, because that's how I'm feeling a little bit these days. It's called Broken. I think everything in me has been broken. The shiny ceramic red heart lies on the floor in shards. Its light that used to flash electric now glows steady in the dark. Outside the window, I watch the souls of my mother and father, wrapped in black shawls, ride down the river, weird water in strange boats. They are without hearts, liver, feet, except souls. They are all souls now. I am here in my time, lit, broken, fire burning, full of holes, vibrating at last, light, life, mine, at last, broken.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you. I had a request, Sapphire, if you could address the Me Too movement, its successes, its problems, its where it still can go, and especially if you can look at it through the eyes of the women that you try to represent or you try to write about. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the Me Too movement was vital. And as always, I want to keep bringing it back to women of color, to working women. So from the beginning of my experience, hundreds of years ago in this country, of course, as a slave woman working, my body was at the disposal of the master. You know, they would rape and do what they wanted to do. So it's been vital for some of these powerful and very beautiful Hollywood women to show that their lives have not been that different, and that we are all connected, that this is what men in power do. And so this has been a fantastic. I think that, they did the best that they could. And now it's time for all women to begin to bring themselves to the table. We can't get angry at these women for not attending to issues of race and class. They were dealing with their own healing, some of them broken, suicidal, dealing with drugs after having been raped and just horribly treated by some of these Hollywood executives and the boss and all that. So the plight of women is it's not, you can't separate it from anything else. And until women are free, no one is free. Until women of color are free, no woman is really free. So I just I have nothing, there's no bashing of the Me Too movement for me. There's only the desire for more and more inclusiveness and more expansiveness. So what do you think is happening when these women go clean these offices and stuff? And they're assaulted, by their employers, but they're not documented. They're undocumented, so they can't call the police. They can't even bring in their husbands or anything to fight for them. So this whole issue of women working is happening to all of us, and sometimes it takes Angelina Jolie to make us realize that it's happening to us too.
Yeah. You said it so well. We've got comments coming in from all over. Ramin says, "Ask not for whom the bell tolls." Sonali says, "Namaste," and Ramin says, "Thank you." Fernando says, "Thank you kindly." And Fernando says, "What an honor to listen to you." Janine says, "Thank you. Your life is a gift." And my mom is watching in Kerala in India. I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry I can't be there. I would have already seen her twice in these months because of the way I get to travel. And I don't know when I will be able to see her, but I love you very much. And these shows are a kind of connection. Moed says, "I feel like I was a student of a master class taught by a genius tonight." And I think that's a great way of thinking about what just happened. Jennifer says, "Yay, Janine," in response to that. Let me just show you, if I may, when we talk about the Me Too movement, we need to talk about some of the folks who were not in Hollywood and were talking about this long before and got caught up in society, didn't listen to them, and you know this very well. So I'm going to share with you a picture that I got to take. I call some things a life highlight, hashtag life highlight, when you get to do something extra special. And this was the life highlight. You see there the great Anita Hill. I got to meet her 2 years ago at Sharon Waxman's Power Women Summit. And you remember in 1990, 91, when she was in the congressional hearing, how she was vilified and treated badly, not just by the Republicans, as you know, and today where she is and what she's celebrated for. So I just wanted to leave you with that picture and to ask Sapphire to give us some final words as we say goodnight.
I just want to thank you and thank everybody who came into the show and this whole wonderful family of resistance, of information and sharing, and that this pandemic, it's the time of our lives, and this is helping me and it's helping all of us to respond. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I wanted this to be a nice photograph that I can take with your photograph and Moed's picture there so that they can see that. And I want to thank Rose for her great work on tonight's show and bringing us together.
Yeah.
And I do my usual wrap up, so I'm going to let you folks get back to your evenings. And I'm going to say to Sapphire one more time, thank you. And I hope we can celebrate the 25th anniversary of the book Push that became the movie Precious. And thank you so much. We're very grateful.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Rose, you did great. I'm so moved and so wired after that and so excited. How are you feeling?
Oh, she's just so inspiring. I know her through, I took a advanced poetry workshop with her at the 92nd Street Y. And I started to know of her through working through my friendship with Marie Ponceau, the poet Marie Ponceau, who who is, a white poet known for writing in rhyme, in stanzas and in rhyme, partly because I saw her and Sapphire. It would be like Marie Ponceau and Sapphire reading, and I was like, wow, that is really something. So it turns out that Sapphire took some classes with Marie, and of course, genius meets genius, and they became good friends. And that's how. And then I'm part of a group that has given gifts, that has made poetry books for Marie Ponceau once she turned 90 for every year, and we did it until June, when in July she did die, and we're supposed to have an in-person another sharing of our books, but then the pandemic hit, so I don't know how that's going to be handled. But so just really honored to meet her. I've heard her speak. I knew she'd be powerful as a. I've heard her poetry. I haven't heard her speak about politics in the way she did tonight.
I had not seen that before. And this is she told you this is one of the first, or maybe the first time she's ever done a live show like this.
She told me it's the first time she's done a live show.
I'm so touched and so grateful to you, Rose. Everyone, please follow her, Rose Horowitz 31, who she is just amazing. She and Vandana Menon have been broadcasting with me and supporting me and helping me so much for 64 days. Tomorrow is going to be our 65th day. How can that be, including weekends, every single day? I just can't believe we've done it. We've gotten so far, and there's so much more to go. I told Rose and Vandana the other day, anytime you want to call it quits, you're welcome to take a break. You need a break. But this has given me great things, to look forward to every day. And you and I have known each other for a few years, but we've really worked together so much more. Same thing with Vandana. And I'm so grateful to both of you. And it's an example of you saw that there was something we're going to do special together. Though I think, Rose, that your secret agenda is to inject poetry into something that would, how many episodes of poetry have we had already? Like this
at least 2, and I have more. There are more in the wings. So, but
so
is so deep, and poets are deep thinkers. And when we have the chance to hear Sapphire speak about watching the news. I mean, it's just incredible, and just feel so blessed and happy that we could bring her to so many people.
Yeah, and you really did, and the recording's there, so please everybody share it. Ramin, we're going to have Ramin on a show talking about the experience of running cultural institutions. She says Anita Hill was the bravest of women. I was a college student watching those hearings, and it taught me I had to learn to be brave in life. She is so right. My mom says missing my son, her daughter-in-law Rupa, and our darlings Durga and Krishna. And Jonathan is onto it. Open secret agenda with the poetry infiltration of Rose Horowitz.
I'll show you my book dedicated, signed from.
Wow, that's nice. And look at her. Even her signature is bold, right? Like, yes. You can see it. We can see it. Yeah, that's amazing. Post a picture of it. I think people would love to see it. I'm just going to do my wrap up, and I want everybody to stay. And we're going to introduce a new little element of news from today, just so that we can hear. And I want to introduce you to something that I'm seeing. But Rose, we're going to let you off camera. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On behalf of everyone, thank Rose on Twitter, on Facebook. Follow her. Follow Vandana Menon, who's been live tweeting throughout. The hashtag is Sree COVID-19 call. And we're just so grateful to Rose Horowitz.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
And she was great. So what I wanted to do is just tell you about our friend Doug Levy, who has been on the show before. And he now has I'm just going to look up from here like this. But if you go to douglevy.com, you will get and sign up every day. You will get a short email with 3 things that happened today in coronavirus, reliable information that you can benefit from. And today he points to something about normal speech in a confined room poses risk of COVID-19 transmission, depending especially on how people speak. And then the ouster BARDA chief, Rick Bright, you saw that Sapphire was all clued in on everything about his testimony. He talked about his repeated efforts to get the president to activate federal resources to address looming supply shortages. And then President Trump told reporters Thursday that the U.S. military will be deployed to administer a COVID-19 vaccine. And I think we're going to have a vaccine by the end of the year. He said I'd have more information on this on Friday. Please go to douglevy.com, DUGLEVY. Every day he writes this. You can sign up for it. He also wrote a book about coronavirus already, the Essential Communications Handbook for Coronavirus. Go to douglevy.com. He's on Twitter, SFDoug. And talk to him, ask him about the book, and also sign up for this. So you get 3 succinct, useful notes that you can see every day. And I want to thank our sponsors, including this time we are sponsored by the great Tim Sohn, who was our very first sponsor, and he's back for another Survive with Live video boot camp. And we have an ad that we're going to play of one of the students in the boot camp talking about the value of it. So here we go.
Hi, my name is Steve Taylor, and I have had the pleasure of being part of Tim Sohn's first Survive with Live video course. I had very high expectations for the course because I had taken a previous workshop with Tim on social media, and that was an excellent experience, and my high expectations have even been exceeded. I certainly knew that I'd be getting great tech tips, great guidance as to equipment and online tools and all the other processes and steps necessary to create live video. What I've also been very happy to learn is more of this process of thinking through, planning through a broadcast before you even go live, creating a show from scratch, looking at what one's market is and designing a show to be perfect for that market. I've had the opportunity since starting the show to work on several live shows, and the information, the connections that I've made in the live Survive with Live video class and community have been invaluable in really helping me to refine my live streaming. I would highly recommend Survive with Live video for anyone who's going to be doing any sort of live video broadcasting.
Wow, great ad from the great Steve Derive on Twitter, at Steve, D-E-R-I-V-E, Steve Taylor, an ad for Survive with Live Video Bootcamp. Go to SohnSocialMediaSolutions.com, SohnSocialMediaSolutions.com. The course returns 8 weeks starting June 1st. You don't want to miss it, folks. So definitely please go and check that out. And if you like what you saw today, you can actually work with Steve Taylor and my team at DigiMentors. We convert in-person events into virtual events. We help you make your own show. We stream on multiple platforms. We offer you training, consulting. Just email me, Sree@Sree.net. You see right on the screen there. Please take a look and please contact me. If you have a conference that you know is going to be canceled, let us know. If you know someone who was going to postpone their conference, contact us. We are working on a conference for 50,000 teachers that's coming up on end of May. We're going to have a show about that, of course. And we are also just finished a wonderful 3-day-long conference with Princeton University, and we're doing a bunch of other things, and we'll tell you all about it. Please contact me, Sree@Sree.net, SREE@SREE.net. And if you'd like to run an ad the way Tim did that will reach people around the world, please email me, and we have very, very reasonable rates, and we offer discounts for booking multiple days, as you can see on the screen, and it is really inexpensive, and it has high impact, as Tim himself can tell you, because he's come back with another set of ads here with us. And we're really, really grateful to all of you for watching and for supporting. And that's the way that I can have an ad on my show. And I'm so grateful again to our producers. And before you go, a couple of things you should know. If you like that story that we just had, the segment we had on poetry, we do a lot about writers, and we've had multiple writers on our show. We've had more than a dozen journalists and authors on the show. You can see how we've been around the world. People have participated and watched. We're also very proud about the number of women we've had. We've had 93 guests, and 58 of them have been women. And that was just in the first 40 shows. We're now at 64. And that just shows you the value of deliberately doing things, of intentionality matters in everything you do. And I want to tell you that we had an amazing week last week. And this week, we look at this, we had a show on Shakespeare and pandemics. 2 of the greatest Shakespearean scholars in the world, Emma Smith and Carol Rutter of Oxford and Warwick, respectively, were there, moderated with great skill by Linda Bernstein, my colleague and dear friend, and she's a PhD in English, and she's also a social media expert. So that's a killer combination. Please go into our archives on YouTube. My YouTube is right on the screen. Sreenet, Sreenet, Sreenet. Please hit subscribe. If you do, you'll get alerts. You'll also be able to see my entire archive of shows that we've done. 65 shows. Each one is unique. Each one is special. Each one I have learned so much, and each one you have loved. So many people sending us great comments. And that has helped me so much in this crisis. Many of you have said, this is uplifting to you. Many of you have said, this is a lifeline for you. And I say it's a lifeline for me. You folks are, by being here and giving us the time and attention. You have my email address. I'm looking for guest ideas. I'm looking for theme ideas. I'm looking for topic ideas. And yes, we're also looking for sponsors. A big shout out to the folks at Scroll.in, in one of India's leading news, culture, and analysis websites. You have to check it out. Even if you're not that much interested in India, you check it out and you'll see they present a global picture of what's happening in the world today. I wish there were more publications like that in the United States. And that's run by my former student, Naresh Fernandez, of the great class of 1997 at Columbia Journalism School. But thank you, everybody, for watching. We're most grateful for your time, your attention, for being with us. And let's see the last few comments as they come in. Doug Levy says, DougLevy.com. Thank you for the shout out. Renee Edelman, who's been a dear supporter of the show, says, Rose Horowitz, Sapphire is brilliant. I loved Sree and your interview with her tonight. Absolutely wonderful. Great guests make great shows. We're welcome self-nominations. I want to tell you about a couple of shows that we have coming up that you will also love. Tomorrow night, we have a big-time show. We have a show about escapist cinema of South Asia. That's the name of an online film festival, and we'll meet three people. Lucius Baer, who is international film publicist. We'll meet Pia Shah, who's an actress, writer, and producer. And we'll meet Jitin Hingorani, who's founder and festivals director of 2 different film festivals. And he's going to talk about that on Friday night. So Friday night, 9 p.m., you might have been going out to a movie. Instead, you will join us and we'll have a very, very special conversation together about online film festivals and things like that. On Sunday, we have a big treat for you, Positivity Night around here, and Natalie Nixon will be our guest. That's Monday morning in India. She will talk about what it's like to be an author, speaker, strategist, and her new book, Creativity Leap. And she's at Nat W. Nixon on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And check out her book as well at Figure 8 Thinking, Figure 8 Thinking. And lastly, a reminder that every Saturday from noon to 2 Eastern time, I have a spin-off show that's a result of your direct love for this show. I have a show on WBAI Radio. We call it Coping with COVID-19, a helpful, hopeful call-in show. It's on WBAI 99.5 FM here in New York, listener-supported WBAI. And you can watch in New York, you can listen in New York, or anywhere on the planet, WBAI.org, WBAI.org. Please check us out, and please watch noon to 2. This week, among our guests is the great Jamie Metzl. And Jamie is his brother. This is Jonathan Metzl is going to be with us. Jamie will be on with us another show, but Jonathan is the author of Dying of Whiteness, and why white people in America vote against their own interests, why poor white people are dying from their obsession with being white and the cultural ramifications of that. This is a book recommended twice on my show that I did with the great Kimberly Crenshaw. Kim Crenshaw is a professor at Columbia Law School. She coined the term intersectionality. How amazing is that? 30 years ago in a law school class. And she said, we all must read and understand this book by Jonathan Metzl. So with that, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to say thank you. I'm so grateful for every minute and everybody who's here and sharing. Please email me, Sree@Sree.net. Please go to my YouTube and become a subscriber today. We would really appreciate it. And also, if you are a WhatsApp user, pick up your phone right now and you can point it at the screen and you will get added to my WhatsApp alerts. It is not a regular WhatsApp group. It is just an alert when I am live so that you can hear about some of the great programming we have. And we have amazing guests coming down the pike, folks. We're going to do this every day as long as New York is in lockdown or I don't have COVID-19. And I'm so grateful to all of you for participating and blessing us with your time and attention. Sree@Sree.net, signing off. Thank you very, very much, everybody. We'll see you again. And we are just very grateful. Rose says, I knew Sapphire would be amazing. So humbling to be able to share her brilliance. What a light. Until women are free, no one is free. She said that tonight. Until women are free, no one is free. What a great way to think about the problems of the world, and to thank again Rose and Vandana for helping me be here with you 64 straight days. We're going for 65 tomorrow, folks. Let's see if we can make it. Be here 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'd love to see you. Thanks very much, everyone.